All right, thanks for joining me on a cold and snowy Sunday evening in Kentucky. As you can see, we're in my car, so the intro to this video I wanted to do a little differently since we're at my church and I play acoustic guitar here, and I wanted to show you how we set it up live since the stage volume is at a bare minimum. Really the only thing you can hear is the singers and my acoustic guitar. So let's head on inside and I'll show you how that's all set up. Also, day like today where it's really cold, humidify your guitars and don't keep them in the cold all day. It's not good for them. Treat them nice. Okay, so I decided to do this in voiceover because the audio was pretty bad for this part. As you can see, I'm using the Helix LT, and the setup is really simple. The guitar is going in the main input, as you would expect, and the output is going straight from the XLR out mono into the board. So with the Helix, we don't need a direct box or anything like that, so that's pretty nice. And since the stage volume is so low, we are using the ZST in-ear monitors that I got from Amazon for, I think it was like $25 or something like that. They're really cheap, but they sound really good. So let's head on over and check out some more gear. All right, so it is 2021, and we should be able to get really good live acoustic tones by now. Don't you agree? So there's a few different ways you can do that. The first thing you need to consider is the pickup that's in the guitar itself. So this is a Martin 000 RSGT, and it has a LR Baggs Anthem SL pickup in it. So what that is there's an under saddle pickup, and there's a microphone inside the guitar that helps pick up the body resonance. So by itself, it sounds like this. So it's not terrible. It's a lot better than a lot of the standard guitar mics that you have out there. So that's number one, get a good pickup system. There's active ones, there's passive ones. This particular one is active, so it takes a 9-volt battery, but they do make them passive. I know like the K&K pickups that are transducer pickups that are underneath the guitar are really good, and they make sound hole pickups. There's all kinds of, we're not going to get into all that today, but that's number one, get a good pickup. Number two, if you don't have a Helix or something like that easily accessible, get something like this. This is a Tonebone PZ PZ Deluxe, as you can see. The PZ Pre is the big one. These are by Radio Engineering out of Canada. These are really, really, really powerful preamp pedals. They can just help your overall sound going straight into the board. So you have control over your EQ and your phase and all that, in case there's any problems. And the thing I like about them, come back to it, is one, you have a boost switch that's adjustable, so if you need more volume you can click that. Also this side you can't really see it because of the little knob thing here, but it's a mute switch, so if anything goes wrong you can just click that and it automatically mutes your signal. That's something that's really, really good to have if you're playing live. So let's go into HX Edit and check out how I set up acoustic guitar tones. All right, so we're back in HX Edit, and I've added a volume pedal here just so I can control the volume with my foot. So setting up a patch for the acoustic guitar, you can set it up as simple or as complex as you want, depending on what you need as far as an acoustic tone. So the first thing I always do with my patches is route down to path 2 so I can unlock the full power of the Helix that I'm working with. Let's see what just the drag signal looks like or sounds like. So it's not terrible, but it has a long way to go. So the first thing we can do is we can add an EQ. They've got a selection to choose from. I usually just use the parametric EQ and kind of go through different signals or different frequencies, excuse me, to kind of get what I'm looking for out of the instrument. So what I notice immediately with this guitar is it's a little on the dark side. So I might first play with this low frequency. So we have 3 parameters for each frequency spectrum. So the low frequency fader here will determine what the frequency actually is that you're affecting. The Q, if you don't know what a Q curve is, it's basically how wide the band of frequencies around the frequency you've picked you're affecting. So you can go from a really wide Q to a really narrow Q, and we'll experiment with that in a minute. And then the gain is how much you want to boost or cut that frequency. So right now, since it's 0 dB, it's not doing anything. So let's look at some of these lower frequencies. So that darkness, let's go to about 200 and just pull it down a little bit. We're gonna refine this in a minute. It's not gonna be that drastic. But what we're looking for is basically just until you find the frequency range that you kind of think makes it sound better. So for me, the higher we go, the thinner it's going to get. You can also do this by boosting if you want, rather than cutting, so you can boost it way up. I'm not going to go that high just so it doesn't clip. Drag it across until you find any problem frequencies. So right there, around 200. I'm going to pull that back. Well, actually, before I do that, let's look at this Q curve. So that's set on 1. If you set it higher, what I hear is the lower the setting, the more frequencies it's affecting. So like the wider the curve. So if you make a really narrow curve, it's still going to give you a lot of the frequencies that you're doing, or that you're producing, but notching out that one frequency. So let's set it kind of roughly in the middle. And then we're going to pull that back just a little bit, not a lot. Just to take some of the low mud out of it. The next frequency range is our mids. So that goes all the way from 125 all the way up to 8K. So it's a really, really wide frequency band we can use. For this one, let's start around 1K because I know that's usually an issue frequency. Yeah, it makes it really nasally sounding, but go a little lower. So with this guitar, I don't think it's too bad, but I'm hearing a lot of weirdness down here around the 380 range. Yeah, so I'm just going to put it right there, and I'm going to raise this Q just a little bit, and then we're just going to, not a whole lot, say 1.5 and see what that does. Versus 0. So again, it's just clearing up some of that low mud. And then the high frequency can again go from 500 all the way up to 18K in this case. So the acoustic guitar, you don't really need to mess with anything that high. So let's start down here about 2K, and again I'm going to boost things and see how that's going. So what I'm hearing is after you get past about 4.5, 5K, it's not doing a whole lot. So let's give it just a slight bump at 4.5K. Again, we'll make that a little wider and not much, just like a dB or two. Just to give it a little bit more sparkle. That'll help us cut through a little bit too and increase your pick attack. So for acoustic guitar, your pick really, really matters, which I guess it's all guitars too, but more so on acoustic, I think. I am using a blue chip pick, and it's a fairly thick pick, so there's no flex to it. So in general with a pick, the thicker the pick you have, the more of the pick you're going to hear, versus the thinner the pick, the more you'll hear the strings. For me, I don't like the feel of thin picks, so I use a thicker one. Getting back to this, the low cut here, you don't want to get too high, but it kind of depends on the situation you're playing in. If you're playing by yourself, you could probably leave it alone. Playing fingerstyle stuff. You might even boost some of the low end back. For me, I like to set it around 85 to 100. A little more to 100. So that might be a little much. So just kind of a happy medium, say 90. And the reason why I do that is playing in a group, especially with a bass player, you're going to be able to get out of their way a little bit, so you sit better in the mix. That's the same reason why I pulled out some of these low mids. Is if you're playing with an electric guitar player, that's the mid range is more so where they live, so boosting the highs, you can kind of cradle around them and carve out your own little space. Then the high cut is just going to cut the high frequencies. It's at 9K versus off. So there's a lot of harmonic content you're cutting out if you take that down. Let's take it down to 10 and see where that's like. Maybe 12. And then off. Yeah. I'm going to go about 11. Again, kind of happy medium. And with the high cuts, if you're playing with a drummer, it can be good to push that down a little bit. That way you're not interfering with the cymbal frequency, or you're not clashing with it. So their cymbals can ring out and your guitar can be heard still, so they're not blending together so much. Then the last parameter here is the level. So that's just your makeup gain if you feel like you need it, which we're doing a lot of cutting. So let's just boost it back by a dB. And then let's bypass it. That was no EQ. And then with the EQ, see what we did. So what I hear is it's more mid-focused now, which can be good or bad depending on, again, the situation that you're looking for. So it, like I said, it can be anything. So what I want to do is I want to pull that mid frequency up just a little bit. And then always double check. Yeah, so that's at 600 or 594 hertz, roughly 600. And I'm going to pull this frequency curve up a little bit, or the Q curve. That way, I want it more mid-focused, but I don't want it to sound weird at the same time. At the end of this video, I'm going to do what this sounds like in a mix, and you can hear all that as well. So the next thing I will normally add is some kind of compression, which usually that will go first, depending on how you set it up. It can. So if we're going to do that, let's bypass the EQ just for a minute and then go to our compressor, and we have all these to choose from. With acoustic, I like the LA Studio Comp. Immediately it's a little bit louder, so I normally will pull the level back just a few dB. And on the Helix itself, if you see me looking down, you have a little level gauge now, so it shows you how much you're actually affecting the signal. So with this, let's Command Z that. With this compressor, you have a peak reduction, a gain, the type of compressor, the emphasis, the mix, and the level. So the peak reduction is kind of your threshold, so that's how high or low the frequency, or how loud or soft the frequency needs to be before it starts engaging. The gain is your makeup gain, so that's going to be just how loud you're making things. You can have it as a compressor or a limiter. Then the emphasis is kind of like how much compression you're adding to that peak reduction. So like when it starts engaging how much compression you're adding, then obviously the mix knob is just, again, just how much of your dry signal versus how much of the compression signal, and the level's your overall level. So let's turn this down just a little bit. So it's not registering it on the Helix. So turn it back up. There, so it just registered when I was picking really hard. So let's keep that high. And then I'm going to pull it back just a little bit because I want some of my dynamic volume back. And then the gain, I don't want it to get too hot, so I normally run it about 6. And then now let's add our EQ back. So I think that's starting to sound pretty good just for the pickup. The next, I guess the most common thing you would add is some kind of reverb. So I normally will come down here to the second path to add my reverbs. And again, I like stereo reverbs. And for acoustic, I like plates, but I actually really like spring reverbs. And I know this double tank is a really, really big reverb, so I'm going to turn this down. And I'm going to turn the mix down just a little bit starting off. Then this double tank has a modulation that I don't particularly care for, so turn that off, turn the trails on, just in case I ever turn it off. So that sounds okay, but let's turn the pre-delay up. I usually will keep it around 25. And then the low and high cut, I like darker reverbs just so they don't get in the way so much. So let's turn this high cut down to about 3K and see what happens. Yeah, stop messing around. I like the way that's sounding. So that by itself could be just like your general basic acoustic setup. If you wanted to, we can take this a lot farther. So let's kind of set it up how I set mine up live. So first thing I do is I have the compressor at the end, just like I was showing in some of my other videos. So I always have this stereo, and I kind of set it how I had it. I think it was kind of like that, and then I always pull this down a little bit. Yeah, and that's going to make the reverb a little louder, so I also will always pull that down and get my dry signal back. So you get the dry through with your just dry signal, and then you have the reverb kind of going around that. And then I'll also run a stereo 10 band, which I've showed this before, and a lot of people show this. I'll normally shelve off the extreme lows and a little bit of the extreme high. And what you should have also noticed is that also boosted our level a little bit. So if I turn those back off with them on, see how much louder that got? So that will help bring our level up. since the Helix doesn't have any like acoustic preamps or IRs or anything like that stock, which I wish they would add it. So Line6, if you're listening, add some stuff for the acoustic guys. They do have under the preamp, you can click mic, and there's a Studio 2 preamp. So if you wanted a preamp, you could run this. I think it's a little dark sounding, so let's turn the gain up a little bit. Versus with it off. So I don't think it really blends well with the acoustic, but if you wanted to use it, you could. So like I said, this could be like the very, very basic. I do have some IRs that I've bought from 3 Sigma Audio, so let's check out how this pickup will work with an IR. So we got to find them. Here they are. So the one that I've got is the Martin 45 from 3 Sigma Audio, just like I said. So just running it straight into it, it automatically makes the sound way different. Let's turn off our EQ that we did. It's really kind of bright and very mid-rangey. And with 3 Sigma, they have a few different pickup configurations. So they have some for the Taylor expression system, and then have the piezo pickup, and then a sound hole pickup. So the one we just tried was for the expression system, and they have 5 different voicings basically for each one that's got a few different settings. So like a balanced kind of setting, a darker setting, and like a brighter setting. So that's kind of the balanced setting for the expression system pickup. The piezo. Sounds pretty good. I actually really like that one. And then the sound hole pickup. I don't like as much. Probably because this guitar doesn't actually have a sound hole in it, or sound hole pickup in it. So let's start with the piezo. So that's 1 A, 1 B. A little more mid-rangey. Yeah. And 2. Don't like that one at all. 3. Don't like that one either. 4. It doesn't sound bad. Compare that one to the A. Versus 4. That one doesn't sound bad at all. Let's see, 4B adds a little more low end, and C adds a little more mids. And 5. It's kind of like almost a scooped sound to my ears. So I'm gonna go with 4A for the piezo. Before I do any editing with this, let's see what our EQ sounds like with that IR. It's not bad, and then bypass it. I think that sounds pretty decent by itself like that. One trick I will normally do is you can split the IR signal with your pickup signal. So just pull down the IR, and now you'll have your pickup signal, and you can blend in the IR with your original signal. Which sounds like that versus both through the IR versus split. So now you've got two signals going, so it's going to be a little louder, but you can control that. And then doing it like this, you can actually do separate EQs. So let's just do a trick. So I two finger clicked, or it'd be right click on PC, PC, and copy that, and then we're going to come down here and paste it. And then click on this little joint here and click AB, and we can route it to just A. So this would be just the pickup. Or we could route it to just B, which is the IR. So let's EQ them a little bit differently. So the IR, I normally will EQ them to be a little bit brighter, and then let the pickup provide more of the low end. So let's come over here and start playing around with the EQ settings for the IR. So this one, let's go up a little higher. And again, make it a little brighter. So I'm going to pull it down. Yeah, and then the mid frequency, we'll do the same thing. Boost and see what it sounds like. And boost a little more than that. So this one, I don't like the 1K, so let's pull that down. And let's make this more of a notch. So go real high with it. And then again, double check. Pull that out just a little bit lower. And then the highs, let's take this down just a little bit. Let's see, like 3K. And I'm actually going to boost that a little more. And see what that sounds like bypassed versus engaged. Cool. And then let's take this high cut up. I'm actually going to do something drastic, go like 150. And then the reason why I'm doing that again is I want this to be a little bit brighter than our pickup signal. So let's see what they sound like together. So you just put that back to even split. Yeah. One other thing you could do is if you want the effects to just be on one path and not the other, you can pull this down and route this again to 2A, and then pull this one down and go back to here. Now we have the option for 2B or 2A plus B. So the IR, let's make that one go to 2A, but the pickup, which was this one, let's make go to 2B. And I'm going to move our volume pedal so that's not just going to be active for just one path. So it's active for both again. I'm going to come back in here and let's not make that low cut quite so drastic. Say 120. Yeah, so let's turn all this off and see where we've come. That's just the pickup, and here's what we've done again so far. So we've tamed some of that low end, but we've also cut off a little bit of the high end just so it will fit better in a mix. That's the tricky thing about making your sound fit in a mix, is it doesn't always sound good by itself, but when you put it in with everything else, it sits in really well. So if you have the chance to mix live while you're playing with other things, that can be really cool too. One thing I wanted to mention while you're doing the EQ, if you don't want to sit there and play, you can actually hook up a looper pedal. You can do whichever one you want, and I'm going to assign that to just a foot switch, and you can play. And have that playing while you're doing your EQ. So that can be an effective way to do that too, and not have to keep going back and forth. I'm not sure why I moved that volume over there, but that's okay. So what about adding some more effects? So we can add some delays. Again, down here, I'm going to go stereo. This vintage digital one sounds really good on acoustic. And I always take the bit depth up and the sample rate all the way up. So let's take that on, and I think I've got a cat clawing at the door. Yep. Let's take the mix level down a little bit, and let's take this scale down to 67. Yeah, I think that sounds good. And we're going to bypass that for now, and we'll just put it on a foot switch too. Then you can do the Helix now in the pitch stuff has like a 12 string emulator. Which it's not too bad, but it's kind of chorusy sounding to me. Let's see what this sounds like in front of the IR. So I just pulled it up. Actually, it's not too bad. So if you needed to play a 12 string part and you don't have a 12 string, you can use that and probably get away with it. Then with this latest 3.0 update, they added these poly patches in, and some of these sound really cool on acoustic, especially like the poly whammy. So it's set for the expression pedal. So you can get some really crazy sounds out of that. And the poly pitch sounds really good too. What I will normally do with this one is I'll set it lower. So if you set it at 5, it is going down basically to a B. So your E string will go down to a B, so it's like a 7 string. Or you could set it down -7 and it's like a low A. I think that's a little much on acoustic usually, so I'll set that at like a B. So with that, it's good if you're using headphones or something where you can't hear the original signal, unless you set it for octaves, because it can get a little wonky, but you can get some really cool sounds out of that. I'm not going to go too in depth with it just for time's sake, but then you have all your standard modulations and everything like that. So what I normally will do is I'll put down here, we'll put a stereo chorus. I really like this Trinity chorus. Yeah, it's just too much mix. Turn it down a little bit. So what that will do is if you need almost kind of like a doubled kind of sound, it will give you that. Or if you're not cutting through the mix very well, you can click on that chorus and it'll help you cut through. So let's just, one more thing, sorry. The reverbs, let's go back into these reverbs, and I like to add this glitz reverb. Just as a almost kind of ethereal kind of solo thing, or especially since I was just at church, in praise and worship music, you'll hear reverbs and delays all over the place. But if your pianist doesn't have like a lot of pads going on, or your electric guitar player is not doing a bunch of really washy reverb kind of stuff, and you can turn some of these on and actually do that yourself and sound really neat. So like that kind of sorry, that's a bad note. That kind of stuff can sound really neat, and that, and it not get in the way. So to make it not get in the way, again, I would turn the high cut, there it is, sorry, high cut down a little bit on it. Let's see what that just did. Yeah, and turn this up just a touch. And with this one, since our pre-delay for the other reverb was 25, let's take this one up to 60. So it can start to sound really good. I'm going to take this low cut up too. Take this all the way up to 200. That way it's out of the way of our lows and it's not going to cause any extra muddiness. Yeah. And then one more I like to add with that. Let's put this on a foot switch. Is this go under legacy and this particle verb. So let's see what that sounds like. Turn the other one off. So you can hear it's not very prominent, but it has this nice swell to it. So what you can do is you can combine those two and even put them on the same foot switch. So where this one's placed, we can put them both there. Again, you can call it whatever you want. So that way when you hit the foot switch, it turns both of them on. And you get a little extra decay. Then you can turn the delays on too. And get some really, really nice kind of ambient stuff going on. So I think that's enough for this particular video. It's kind of dragging on a little bit. So let's go on to the jam and see what this sounds like in a mix. And I'm going to record it with a Audio-Technica AT2020 sitting in front of it as well, facing around the body joint. And I'm going to A/B just what the guitar sounds like versus what just the pickup sounds like, and then both together. All right, so let's go check that out. Alright, thank you all again so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed the video and learned something along the way. If you did, give it a thumbs up and consider subscribing so I have more videos and lessons out in the future. Also remember, down in the description box there's my personal website links and social media links so you can find out more about me, about lessons, all kinds of other goodies. So go check those out as well. Alright, hope you all have a good day. See you later.